The air at Norfolk Naval Base was thick with tension. Soldiers moved with purpose, their faces set in grim determination as they navigated through the base's maze of buildings and training grounds. It was the spring of 1961, and what was supposed to be a routine military exercise had turned into an inexplicable nightmare. An entire battalion had vanished without a trace, and the gravity of the situation was palpable. I arrived at the base early that morning, the scent of salt water from the nearby Chesapeake Bay lingering in the air. My friend and confidant, Elliot Brooks, had been discreetly summoned to investigate the mysterious disappearance. Elliot was known for his uncanny ability to read people and situations, and his reputation had earned him the trust of law enforcement and military officials alike. As his partner, I had witnessed his brilliance firsthand, and I knew that if anyone could solve this enigma, it was him. Elliot stood beside me, his tall frame exuding an air of quiet confidence. His piercing blue eyes scanned the surroundings with a keen intensity, taking in every detail. He was dressed in his usual attire, a tailored suit and a fedora that shaded his eyes from the morning sun. Despite the seriousness of the situation, he maintained his characteristic calm demeanor. "Quite the predicament we've got here, Miguel," he remarked, his voice steady and measured. "Indeed," I replied, adjusting my glasses. "An entire battalion disappearing without a trace? It defies logic." Elliot nodded thoughtfully. "Let's start by examining the exercise area and speaking with the commanding officer. We need to gather as much information as we can." We made our way to the exercise area, where the battalion had last been seen. The ground was marked with tire tracks and footprints, evidence of the intense training that had taken place. Despite the activity, there was an eerie stillness in the air, as if the land itself held its breath. Captain Richards, the battalion's commanding officer, greeted us with a terse nod. His expression was one of fatigue and frustration, and it was clear that the weight of the situation had taken its toll on him. "Mr. Brooks, Mr. Vasquez," he said, acknowledging us. "Thank you for coming." Elliot extended his hand in greeting. "Captain Richards, we're here to help. Can you walk us through what happened?" The captain sighed heavily. "We were conducting a standard training exercise. The battalion was moving through this area when, suddenly, all communication was lost. When we arrived, they were gone. No signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play, just gone." Elliot's eyes narrowed as he listened. "And you've searched the entire area? No clues, no traces." "We've scoured every inch," Richards replied, his frustration evident. "It's as if they vanished into thin air." Elliot glanced at me, his mind clearly racing with possibilities. "I'd like to speak with the soldiers' families," he said. "Sometimes they notice things that others might miss." Captain Richards nodded. "I'll arrange it. In the meantime, feel free to investigate the area." As we began our examination of the exercise grounds, Elliot's sharp eye caught several details that had eluded others. He pointed out subtle disturbances in the soil, a slight indentation here, a broken branch there. It was as if he could see a story unfolding in the minutiae of the landscape. "There's something off about this," Elliot mused aloud. "The disappearance is too clean. It doesn't add up." We spent the next few hours meticulously combing through the area, taking note of anything that seemed out of place. Elliot's methodical approach was both impressive and reassuring. He had an innate ability to connect seemingly unrelated dots, and I trusted his instincts implicitly. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the base, Captain Richards approached us once more. "I've arranged for you to meet with some of the soldiers' families," he said. "They'll be arriving shortly." Elliot nodded. "Thank you, Captain. We'll speak with them right away." We made our way to a small conference room where the families had gathered. Their faces were etched with worry and uncertainty, and my heart ached for them. Elliot, ever the empathetic listener, approached them with a gentle demeanor. I'm Elliot Brooks, and this is my partner, Miguel Vasquez, he began. We're here to help find your loved ones. Can you tell us if you noticed anything unusual before the disappearance? Any changes in behavior? Anything out of the ordinary? One by one, the family members recounted their experiences. Some mentioned strange dreams their loved ones had experienced, while others spoke of unusual phone calls and mysterious visitors. It became clear that there was more to this disappearance than met the eye. Elliot took detailed notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Thank you for sharing this with us," he said sincerely. "Your observations are invaluable." As we left the conference room, Elliot turned to me. "These accounts suggest that the battalion may have been targeted for a specific reason. We need to find out what that reason is." The next day, we continued our investigation with renewed determination. Elliot's instincts led us to a secluded research facility on the outskirts of Norfolk. The facility, hidden behind tall fences and guarded by security personnel, seemed an unlikely place for answers. However, Elliot was convinced that this was a crucial piece of the puzzle. We were met at the entrance by Dr. Evelyn Harper, a scientist who had been involved in a project known as Project Phoenix. Her demeanor was guarded, and she seemed hesitant to speak with us. "Dr. Harper," Elliot began, "we're investigating the disappearance of the battalion. We have reason to believe that Project Phoenix may be connected. Can you tell us more about the project?" Dr. Harper's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Project Phoenix was an experimental initiative aimed at developing advanced technology for military applications. It involved cutting-edge research in physics and engineering, but I can't disclose more than that. Elliot's expression was resolute. "Dr. Harper, lives are at stake. We need to know everything." The scientist hesitated for a moment before finally relenting. "All right, Project Phoenix was an attempt to develop teleportation technology. The battalion was part of a test run. During the exercise, the technology malfunctioned, and they were transported to an unknown location. The military covered it up to avoid a scandal." Elliot's eyes widened with realization. "So the battalion didn't just vanish. They were transported elsewhere." "Yes," Dr. Harper confirmed, "but we don't know where. The technology is unstable, and the risks are immense." With this revelation, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Elliot's mind raced as he formulated a plan to locate the missing battalion. The next step was clear. We needed to track the energy signature of the teleportation event and follow it to its source. As we left the facility, Elliot turned to me with a determined look. "Miguel, we're getting closer. We need to find that energy signature and uncover the truth behind Project Phoenix. The lives of those soldiers depend on it." The investigation had taken a dramatic turn, and the stakes were higher than ever. Together, Elliot and I embarked on a mission to unravel the mystery of the vanished battalion and bring them back home. The following day, as the first light of dawn pierced through the morning mist, Elliot and I set out with renewed vigor. The Norfolk Naval Base buzzed with its usual activity, but there was an undercurrent of tension that was impossible to ignore. The disappearance of the battalion weighed heavily on everyone, and the mystery surrounding it demanded answers. We began by revisiting the exercise grounds, hoping to uncover any clues we might have missed the previous day. Elliot's methodical approach was evident as he meticulously examined the terrain. His keen eyes scanned the area, noting every detail, no matter how insignificant it seemed. I followed closely, ready to assist whenever needed. As we walked, Elliot spoke thoughtfully. "The teleportation theory makes sense given what Dr. Harper told us, but we need to pinpoint the exact location where the battalion was transported. The energy signature will be key." I nodded in agreement. "Do we have any leads on how to trace that signature?" Elliot paused, considering our options. "The research facility where Dr. Harper works might have the equipment we need. We should head there next." Our journey took us to the outskirts of Norfolk, where the secluded research facility was located. Tall fences and security checkpoints guarded the entrance, but our credentials granted us passage. Inside, the sterile halls and advanced technology hinted at the groundbreaking work being conducted within. Dr. Harper greeted us upon arrival, her demeanor slightly more cooperative than before. She led us to a lab filled with complex machinery and computer terminals. The hum of electronic equipment filled the air, creating an atmosphere of focused intensity. "We're here to trace the energy signature of the teleportation event," Elliot explained. "Can your equipment help us with that?" Dr. Harper nodded, leading us to a large console. "This is the energy trace analyzer. It can detect residual energy signatures from the teleportation event. I'll need to input the data from the exercise grounds." Elliot handed her the data we had collected, and she began inputting it into the machine. The analyzer whirred to life, processing the information with precision. We watched intently as the screen displayed a series of graphs and readings. "Based on this data," Dr. Harper said, "the teleportation event generated a unique energy signature that we can trace. It seems to lead to a location near the Chesapeake Bay." Elliot's eyes gleamed with determination. "That matches the area where we found those traces. We need to follow this lead." Armed with the coordinates provided by Dr. Harper, we set out once more. The drive to the Chesapeake Bay was a quiet one, each of us lost in our thoughts. The weight of the mission hung heavily in the air, but the prospect of uncovering the truth fueled our resolve. As we arrived at the location, the tranquil beauty of the bay stood in stark contrast to the urgency of our task. The sun glistened off the water's surface, and seagulls called out overhead. It was hard to imagine that such a serene place could be connected to a military experiment gone awry. Elliot and I began our search, following the residual energy trail. It led us to an abandoned warehouse, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. The door creaked open as we entered, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with discarded equipment and old crates. "Stay alert," Elliot cautioned. "There could be more to this place than meets the eye." We moved cautiously through the warehouse, our senses heightened. The air was thick with dust, and the faint scent of machinery lingered. As we ventured deeper, we came across remnants of military equipment, helmets, uniforms, and ration packs. It was clear that the battalion had been here. Elliot's sharp eyes caught a glint of metal beneath a pile of crates. He knelt down and retrieved a small, metallic device. "This is a locator beacon," he said, examining it closely. "It must have been used to track the battalion's movements." Our discovery confirmed that the battalion had been transported here, but their current whereabouts remained a mystery. Elliot's mind raced as he pieced together the clues. "Someone captured them," he concluded, "and they've been moved again. We need to find out who and why." As we continued our search, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. We instinctively took cover behind a stack of crates, our breaths held in anticipation. A group of armed men entered the warehouse, their voices hushed as they spoke. "Keep an eye out," one of them said. "We can't let anyone find out about this operation." Elliot and I exchanged a glance. These men were clearly involved in the battalion's capture. We needed to find a way to gather information without being detected. Elliot's keen observational skills came into play as he listened intently to their conversation. "They're being held at the facility," another man said. "We need to make sure the experiment is completed without any interference." The mention of a facility confirmed our suspicions. Elliot signaled for us to quietly retreat, and we slipped out of the warehouse undetected. Once we were safely back at our vehicle, Elliot's mind was already formulating a plan. "We need to find this facility," he said. "It's clear that the battalion is being used for further experiments. We have to put a stop to this." The investigation had taken a dangerous turn, but Elliot's determination remained unwavering. We knew that time was of the essence, and every moment brought us closer to uncovering the truth behind Project Phoenix and the rogue faction's nefarious plans. As we prepared for the next phase of our mission, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The stakes were higher than ever, and the lives of the missing soldiers hung in the balance. But with Elliot leading the way, I had no doubt that we would find the answers we sought. The drive back to the research facility was tense. Elliot's mind was working overtime, analyzing every piece of information we had gathered so far. The revelation that the battalion had been transported to an unknown location and subsequently captured by a rogue faction within the military had raised more questions than answers. As we arrived at the facility, Dr. Harper greeted us once more. She sensed the urgency in our demeanor and led us to a secure room where we could discuss our findings without fear of being overheard. "We've traced the energy signature to an abandoned warehouse near the Chesapeake Bay," Elliot explained. "We discovered remnants of military equipment and a locator beacon. We also overheard a conversation indicating that the battalion is being held at a hidden facility for further experiments. Do you have any idea where this facility might be?" Dr. Harper's expression turned somber. "There are several off-the-books research facilities that the military uses for classified projects. Based on what you've described, it sounds like they might be holding the battalion at Site X-13. It's a highly secure location deep in the Virginia countryside." Elliot nodded thoughtfully. "How do we get there?" "It's not going to be easy," Dr. Harper warned. "Site X-13 is heavily guarded, and access is restricted to authorized personnel only. But I can provide you with the coordinates and a security pass that should get you through the initial checkpoints." We thanked Dr. Harper for her assistance and set off for Site X-13. The drive through the Virginia countryside was long and uneventful, but the tension in the air was palpable. Elliot's determination was unwavering, and I knew that he would stop at nothing to uncover the truth and rescue the missing soldiers. As we approached the coordinates, the landscape changed. Tall trees and dense foliage surrounded us, concealing the entrance to the hidden facility. A series of security checkpoints marked the way, each one more imposing than the last. Elliot presented the security pass provided by Dr. Harper, and to our relief, it granted us passage. We finally arrived at Site X-13, a sprawling complex hidden from prying eyes. The buildings were nondescript, blending seamlessly with the natural surroundings. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and the atmosphere was one of secrecy and vigilance. Elliot and I made our way to the main building, where we hoped to find information on the battalion's whereabouts. As we navigated the maze of corridors, we came across a room labeled Project Phoenix, Research and Development. The door was locked, but Elliot's skills in observation and deduction came into play as he expertly picked the lock. Inside, the room was filled with advanced technology and research documents. Elliot wasted no time, sifting through the papers and files in search of any clues. His eyes lit up as he found a document labeled Operation Restoration. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with urgency. Operation Restoration is the name of the project involving the missing battalion. They're being used as test subjects for further teleportation experiments. The gravity of the situation hit us hard. The soldiers were not only missing, they were being subjected to dangerous experiments. Elliot's resolve intensified as he scanned the document for more information. "According to this, the experiments are being conducted in a secure lab on the lower levels of this facility," he said. "We need to get down there and put a stop to this." We made our way to the lower levels, careful to avoid detection by the guards. The air grew colder as we descended, and the sterile walls of the facility seemed to close in around us. The tension was palpable, but Elliot's determination kept us focused. As we reached the secure lab, the door was guarded by two heavily armed soldiers. Elliot and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing on a plan of action. Using the element of surprise, Elliot swiftly disarmed the guards with his martial arts skills, and we entered the lab. The sight that greeted us was both shocking and heartbreaking. The missing soldiers were confined to individual chambers, hooked up to advanced machinery that monitored their vital signs. The room was filled with the hum of electronic equipment and the sterile smell of antiseptic. Elliot's eyes scanned the lab, searching for the control panel that operated the chambers. He found it on the far wall and quickly began working to disable the system. As he did so, I approached the chambers, offering words of comfort and reassurance to the soldiers. "We're here to get you out," I said softly. "Hold on just a little longer." Elliot's fingers flew over the control panel, deactivating the chambers one by one. The soldiers emerged, disoriented but relieved to be free. We quickly explained the situation and instructed them to follow us to safety. As we made our way back to the upper levels, the facility's alarm system blared to life. Our presence had been detected, and we knew that time was running out. Elliot led the way, his mind racing as he formulated an escape plan. "We need to get to the vehicle and head for the nearest safe location," he said urgently. "Stay close and stay alert." The soldiers, though weakened by their ordeal, followed our lead with determination. We navigated the maze of corridors, avoiding security patrols and taking the quickest route to the exit. The adrenaline coursed through our veins as we pushed forward, driven by the need to protect and rescue those who had been subjected to unspeakable experiments. As we reached the entrance, the sound of approaching footsteps signaled that the guards were closing in. Elliot's eyes scanned the surroundings, searching for a way out. He spotted a side entrance that led to a maintenance tunnel, and we quickly made our way inside. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but it provided a direct route to the outside. We moved swiftly, the sound of our footsteps echoing through the confined space. The tension was palpable, but Elliot's unwavering determination kept us focused. Finally, we emerged from the tunnel and into the cool night air. The guards were still in pursuit, but we had gained enough of a lead to make our escape. We quickly loaded the soldiers into the vehicle and sped away from the facility, leaving Site X-13 behind. The drive to the safe location was filled with a mix of relief and urgency. The soldiers, though exhausted, expressed their gratitude for our rescue. Elliot's eyes remained focused on the road, his mind already planning our next steps. As we arrived at the safe location, a secluded cabin in the woods, we knew that our mission was far from over. The rogue faction within the military still posed a threat, and we needed to ensure that Project Phoenix was exposed and dismantled. Elliot's determination burned brightly as he spoke. "We've made progress, but there's still work to be done. We need to bring the truth to light and ensure that those responsible are held accountable." The mystery of the vanished battalion had taken us on a dangerous journey, but with Elliot leading the way, I had no doubt that we would succeed in uncovering the truth and protecting those who had been used as pawns in a dangerous experiment. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the secluded cabin, we gathered the rescued soldiers and briefed them on our plan. Elliot's leadership and resolve inspired confidence in the men, and they were eager to assist in any way they could. "We need to uncover more information about this rogue faction and their connection to Project Phoenix," Elliot explained. "Our goal is to expose their activities and bring them to justice." The soldiers, though still recovering from their ordeal, agreed to help. They shared valuable insights about their captors and the experiments they had been subjected to. Their testimonies painted a disturbing picture of the rogue faction's agenda. Elliot and I spent the night sifting through the information, formulating a strategy to expose the truth. We knew that our next step was to locate the faction's headquarters and gather concrete evidence of their activities. The soldiers' descriptions of the facility and its layout would be crucial in planning our approach. The following morning, we set out with a renewed sense of purpose. The soldiers had provided us with the coordinates of the rogue faction's headquarters, located deep in the Virginia countryside. The drive was long and arduous, but our determination never wavered. As we approached the location, the landscape grew increasingly desolate. The headquarters was a sprawling complex, hidden from prying eyes by dense foliage and rugged terrain. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and it was clear that the faction was prepared for any intruders. Elliot and I surveyed the area from a safe distance, noting the positions of the guards and the layout of the buildings. We needed a plan to infiltrate the facility without raising suspicion. Elliot's keen mind quickly formulated a strategy. "We'll use the element of surprise," he said. "We'll wait for nightfall and then make our move. We'll need to disable the security systems and gather as much evidence as we can." As night fell, we prepared for the mission. The soldiers had provided us with uniforms and equipment that would allow us to blend in with the guards. Elliot's skills in observation and deduction would be our greatest asset as we navigated the complex. With the cover of darkness, we made our way to the facility's perimeter. Elliot expertly disabled the security cameras and alarm systems, allowing us to slip inside undetected. The corridors were dimly lit, and the air was thick with tension. We moved quickly and quietly, our senses heightened. Elliot's keen eye caught every detail, guiding us through the maze of hallways. We encountered several guards along the way, but our disguises allowed us to pass without arousing suspicion. Our goal was to reach the main control room, where we hoped to find evidence of the faction's activities. The soldiers' descriptions of the facility had been accurate, and we navigated the labyrinth with relative ease. As we approached the control room, the sound of voices reached our ears. We paused, listening intently to the conversation. It was clear that the faction's leaders were discussing their plans for Project Phoenix and the next phase of their experiments. Elliot signaled for us to move forward. We entered the control room, catching the leaders by surprise. Elliot's presence was commanding as he addressed them. "We know what you're up to," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "We're here to put an end to your experiments and bring you to justice." The faction's leader, a man named Colonel Harris, glared at us with a mix of anger and defiance. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he spat. "Project Phoenix is the future of warfare. You can't stop us." Elliot's eyes burned with determination. "We've already rescued the soldiers you were using as test subjects. We have evidence of your activities, and we won't rest until you're held accountable." A tense standoff ensued as Elliot and Colonel Harris faced off. The room was charged with anticipation, and it felt as if time itself had come to a halt. Elliot's resolve never wavered, and it was clear that he would not back down. In a swift and decisive move, Elliot disarmed Colonel Harris and restrained him. The rest of the faction's leaders were quickly subdued, and we began gathering the evidence we needed to expose their activities. As we searched the control room, we found detailed records of the experiments, as well as communications between the faction and high-ranking officials. The extent of the conspiracy was staggering, and it was clear that Project Phoenix had far-reaching implications. With the evidence in hand, we made our way back to the entrance. The rescued soldiers, who had been standing guard outside, greeted us with relief and gratitude. The mission had been a success, but we knew that our work was far from over. The next step was to expose the truth to the public and ensure that those responsible were brought to justice. We contacted trusted allies in the media and law enforcement, sharing the evidence we had gathered. The revelations sent shockwaves through the military and the government, and an investigation was launched into the rogue faction's activities. Elliot's determination and unwavering resolve had been instrumental in uncovering the truth and rescuing the missing soldiers. As we reflected on the events of the past few days, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride in my friend and partner. "We did it, Elliot," I said, my voice filled with admiration. "We brought the truth to light." Elliot nodded, his expression thoughtful. "There's still much to do, Miguel, but this is the start. We've taken the first step in ensuring that justice is served." The mystery of the vanished battalion had been solved, and the lives of the missing soldiers had been saved. But the journey had also revealed the depths of human ambition and the lengths to which some would go in the pursuit of power. As we prepared to move forward, I knew that with Elliot by my side, we would continue to uncover the truth and fight for justice, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, the exposure of the rogue faction and Project Phoenix sent shockwaves through both the military and the government. News outlets buzzed with the revelations, and public outrage grew. Investigations were launched, and the dark web of deceit and corruption began to unravel. Elliot and I knew that our work was far from over. We had taken significant steps, but there were still unanswered questions and hidden threats that needed to be addressed. Our first priority was ensuring the safety and well-being of the rescued soldiers. They had been through a traumatic ordeal, and their recovery would take time. We arranged for them to receive medical care and support, and we stayed in close contact with them, offering reassurance and guidance. One evening, as we sat in the secluded cabin, Elliot's mind was still racing. He had a stack of documents spread out before him, each one a piece of the puzzle. His determination to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy was unwavering. "We've come a long way, Miguel," he said, his voice thoughtful. "But I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this. We need to dig deeper." I nodded in agreement. "What's our next step?" Elliot's eyes gleamed with resolve. "We need to follow the money. There's always a financial trail in operations like this. If we can trace the funding for Project Phoenix, we might uncover more key players and connections." With this new objective in mind, we began our investigation into the financial aspects of Project Phoenix. Elliot's contacts in the financial sector proved invaluable, providing us with access to banking records and transactions that were otherwise hidden from view. As we sifted through the data, a pattern began to emerge. Large sums of money had been funneled through a series of shell companies and offshore accounts, making it difficult to trace the true source. But Elliot's analytical skills and persistence paid off, and we identified several key individuals and organizations involved in the funding of the project. One name stood out among the others: Vincent Langley, a wealthy industrialist with ties to the military and government. Langley's financial contributions had been instrumental in supporting Project Phoenix, and it became clear that he had a vested interest in its success. Elliot's eyes narrowed as he studied Langley's financial records. "Langley's involvement goes deeper than we thought. We need to confront him and find out what he knows." We arranged a meeting with Vincent Langley under the guise of discussing a potential business opportunity. The meeting took place at his luxurious estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by manicured gardens and high walls. Langley greeted us with a polished smile, but there was an air of arrogance and entitlement about him. "Mr. Brooks, Mr. Vasquez," he said smoothly. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Elliot didn't waste any time. "We're here to talk about Project Phoenix. We know about your financial contributions and your involvement with the rogue faction." Langley's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Project Phoenix was a legitimate research initiative. Any suggestions of wrongdoing are baseless." Elliot's gaze remained steady. "We have evidence, Mr. Langley. Detailed financial records that trace your contributions to the project and your connections to key individuals. This is your chance to come clean and cooperate with the investigation." Langley's demeanor shifted, a hint of anger flashing in his eyes. "You think you can intimidate me? I have powerful allies, Mr. Brooks. You have no idea what you're getting into." Elliot's resolve never wavered. "We're not here to intimidate you, Mr. Langley. We're here to ensure that justice is served. Project Phoenix was more than just a research initiative. It was a dangerous experiment that put lives at risk. And we won't stop until the full truth is revealed." Langley's arrogance gave way to a grudging acknowledgement of our determination. He knew that the evidence we had gathered was damning, and that his powerful allies might not be enough to shield him from the consequences. "Fine," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. "I'll cooperate, but you need to understand that I was only a part of a much larger operation. There are others involved, people in positions of power who won't go down without a fight." Elliot nodded, his expression resolute. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, let's focus on your involvement and the information you can provide." Langley's cooperation proved to be a valuable asset. He provided us with additional details about the funding and logistics of Project Phoenix, as well as the names of other key players involved in the operation. His information led us to uncover more layers of the conspiracy, revealing a network of individuals who had used their influence and resources to further their own agendas. As the investigation continued, Elliot and I worked tirelessly to connect the dots and piece together the full picture. Each revelation brought us closer to the truth, but it also highlighted the extent of the corruption and the challenges we faced. One evening, as we reviewed our findings, Elliot's expression grew pensive. "We've uncovered a lot, Miguel, but there's still a missing piece. Someone at the very top orchestrated this. Someone with the power to pull all the strings." I leaned forward, my curiosity piqued. "Who do you think it is?" Elliot's eyes held a determined glint. "We need to look at the highest levels of government and military leadership. There's someone who had the authority to authorize these experiments and cover them up. We need to find that person." The investigation had reached a critical juncture, and the stakes were higher than ever. With each new piece of information, we drew closer to uncovering the mastermind behind Project Phoenix. The journey was far from over, but with Elliot's determination and unwavering resolve, I knew that we would succeed in our quest for justice. Days turned into weeks as Elliot and I pursued every lead, uncovering more layers of the conspiracy behind Project Phoenix. Each piece of evidence brought us closer to the truth, but also highlighted the depth of the corruption and the power of those involved. Our investigation had drawn the attention of powerful figures, and we knew that the final confrontation would be the most dangerous yet. One evening, as we reviewed our findings, Elliot's expression grew resolute. "We've uncovered the network of financial contributors and intermediaries, but there's still one key figure we haven't identified: the mastermind who orchestrated the entire operation." I nodded, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Do you have any suspects?" Elliot's eyes gleamed with determination. "We've been focusing on high-ranking military and government officials, but there's one name that keeps coming up: General Robert Sinclair. He's a decorated military leader with extensive connections in both the military and the private sector. His influence is vast, and he has the authority to authorize projects like Project Phoenix." The name sent a chill down my spine. General Sinclair was a highly respected figure, known for his strategic brilliance and unwavering dedication to national security. But beneath his polished exterior, there was a darkness that Elliot and I were determined to expose. "We need to confront him," Elliot said, his voice unwavering. "But we can't do it alone. We need allies, people we can trust to help us bring him to justice." We reached out to our contacts in law enforcement and the media, sharing our findings and enlisting their support. The revelations we presented were damning, and our allies agreed to assist us in confronting General Sinclair and exposing the full extent of his involvement in Project Phoenix. The confrontation was set to take place at a high-profile military gala, an event that General Sinclair was scheduled to attend. The venue was a grand ballroom in Washington, D.C., filled with dignitaries, military personnel, and influential figures. It was the perfect setting for a dramatic reveal. Elliot and I arrived at the gala, our presence blending seamlessly with the crowd. The atmosphere was one of opulence and celebration, but beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension. We knew that the moment of truth was approaching. As General Sinclair took the stage to deliver his keynote address, Elliot and I made our way to the front of the room. Our allies were strategically positioned throughout the venue, ready to support us when the time came. Sinclair's speech was filled with patriotic rhetoric and grand promises, but Elliot's eyes remained fixed on him, his expression resolute. As Sinclair concluded his remarks, Elliot stepped forward, his voice cutting through the applause. "General Sinclair," he said, his tone steady and commanding, "we need to talk about Project Phoenix." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to us. Sinclair's expression shifted from surprise to anger as he recognized us. "Mr. Brooks, this is neither the time nor the place for such accusations." Elliot's gaze never wavered. "This is exactly the time and place. The public deserves to know the truth about the experiments you authorized and the lives you put at risk. Sinclair's eyes narrowed, his voice laced with contempt. You have no proof. We have plenty of proof, Elliot interrupted, holding up a stack of documents. Financial records, communications, and testimonies from those who were directly involved. The evidence is irrefutable. Our allies in the media began broadcasting the confrontation live, and the tension in the room escalated. Sinclair's attempts to dismiss us were met with resistance from the crowd, and it was clear that his influence was waning. One of our law enforcement allies stepped forward, his badge gleaming under the lights. General Robert Sinclair, you're under arrest for your involvement in unauthorized human experimentation and conspiracy to cover up the truth. As Sinclair was taken into custody, the room erupted in a mix of shock and relief. The mastermind behind Project Phoenix had been exposed, and justice was finally within reach. Elliot and I stood together, a sense of accomplishment washing over us. The journey had been long and fraught with danger, but our determination and unwavering resolve had prevailed. In the days that followed, the full extent of Project Phoenix was revealed to the public. The investigations led to the dismantling of the rogue faction and the prosecution of those involved. The rescued soldiers received the care and recognition they deserved, and their stories served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and accountability. Elliot and I continued our work, driven by a shared commitment to uncovering the truth and fighting for justice. The case of the vanished battalion had been a turning point, and it had strengthened our bond as partners and friends. As we looked to the future, we knew that there would always be new challenges and mysteries to solve. But with Elliot by my side, I was confident that we would face whatever came our way with courage and determination. And so, the story of the vanished battalion came to a close, but our journey as investigators and defenders of justice was far from over. Together, we would continue to shine a light on the darkness and ensure that the truth would always prevail.